So thank you. So, you thank you. How's everyone? So, that's all we're in a class of them here, yeah, home and great. Oh, and they say, I don't know.
Last week.
It's many hours ago. So, 1 year. Did you? Yeah, one, two, still be here for one. Time's up. Yeah, I can like, Spank was giving each other. So that we knew was be. I stopped Frank 2 years ago at the Basin. He was there, Steve. AJ. Yeah.
No, Gardner's conversation. Oh, really? Like, no shit, no shit.
Obviously, you follow the earnest nature. Yeah, so you talking about, you get alerted. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's really, there's trouble. They can increase the speed. Take tears. That's the way. Chase it up. I think so. I think Michigan. They're actually serious. I feel like that's the construction schedule. Also, I have some. No, it's actually, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we don't talk about it. I thought somebody asked somebody else. Anybody has these, so, this person, they're permitting to subcontract agreements, should be well tomorrow.
Well, we started.
I don't know that. You got any off? I think Jules and you had a couple years ago. Yeah. Yeah. That's all, yeah. Yeah, that's. Yeah, just make it. Choose something. So this. Was it you guys out? So we want us to use. Yeah, that's okay. But. Yeah, just regular value. Yeah, it's try. That's sure there's no future. I think I threw it in here. I was June 12. I got you here. So. It's only sure. Yeah. And it's studying, but I think it's years, but it's calming. Not too far about. Yes. Well, it's actually, so I was going to say, say share this, like, so much interesting. See, there was kind of Philippines, like, it's super much. Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say here, it's very, it's very good. I. I'm not saying. We'll see. You'll be able to. So we're going to come up with dating between you and I talked to them. I was like, so yeah, maybe you said it's quite. I think it's small. There is. There's always the theory certain conditions.
Well, I think we're ready to go ahead and get started here. Thank you all for coming. My name is Drew Matrician. I'm with the Smart Sewer Program and work for Burns McDonnell. Hopefully you are here for the Northern Basins Project 1 public meeting. It's an inflow and infiltration reduction project being performed by the Smart Sewer team. With us tonight, we have some members of the project team. And if you can just raise your hand or stand up when I say your name, that'd be helpful. John Pruce. Got George Downs here. He's the field operations manager. Eric McCormick is our construction contractor. Drew Taylor is our construction manager for the program. And then Ben Bogue is also here with GBA. He's our resident project representative. We'll talk a little bit about what everybody's roles is in detail, but so before we get too far along, just a couple of quick logistics. We are recording this meeting so that any of your neighbors who weren't able to attend tonight can get on kcsmartsewer.us in the next couple days and weeks or during the life of this project to learn more. Go back and watch the meeting and understand what's happening with the project. There's definitely time for questions at the end. We've got construction drawing sets, we've got maps, we've got a baseline schedule. So if you have questions about your specific property, let's just have a little line at the end and we'll go through. You can grab a member of the project team and we can talk about specific impacts to your project or your property. What we hope you'll get out of this meeting is just a good understanding of how the sewer network works in your neighborhood, in your community up here. Understand how your neighborhood will be affected during the construction phase of the project. And then we do want to hear from you if you have specific things that are happening at your property that you want our team to take a closer look at. We'd love to hear about that. So with that, I'm going to have John Pruce come up and talk a little bit about the whole Smart Sewer program and how this project fits in.
Thanks, Drew. So how many of you have heard what the Smart Sewer program is or seen any information about it? It's a federal consent decree that the city has to reduce the amount of overflows that come out of the sewer systems that contaminate the local streams and rivers. And in your area, you have separate sewers, meaning you have a separate sanitary sewer and a separate stormwater sewer. In the older parts of town, in essence, from the Missouri River all the way south to 85th Street, and from State Line over to the Blue River, those are called combined sewers. And in those areas, there's one pipe that carries both stormwater and sanitary flows. So you're in a newer part of town, so you have separate systems, which is a good thing, but nonetheless, the EPA doesn't want us to have overflows out of the sanitary sewer system, and they are occurring. So one of the ways that we try to reduce those is by removing the amount of rainwater that gets in. And how does it get in to begin with? Is through leaks and cracks in the pipe, and I'll show more about that in a moment. So this is just a map showing that combined sewer area in blue. Believe it or not, there's an area downtown by the downtown airport that's also separate. And everything else further to the north, as well as everything south of 85th Street, is all separate. So in the separate sewer system, I mentioned there's two separate pipes. That's what you have here, but yet we still have rainwater getting in and overloading the pipe. And so some of those sources of inflow and infiltration getting in can be where there might actually be a pipe that's interconnecting the storm sewer system with the sanitary sewer system. Adds a lot of rainwater, which we don't want. Also, tree roots tend to get into the joints of pipes, and then they swell the joints and allow rainwater to get in or groundwater to get in. There's also area drains and other private sources on private property where downspouts, for example, can be discharged directly into a sanitary sewer. Even though it's against the plumbing code, it may have been hooked up that way, in which case we come along and try to disconnect those. So we're doing both public and private inflow reduction, trying to reduce the amount of rainwater getting in. And this project specifically is on the public sewer side, but we are also doing work on the private side, which you may have heard about already. So let's talk specifically about this project. We're thinking the value of the construction, 7.4 million all in with design and construction. Drew, what's your bid price that we got on the construction? Just construction, 7.4. Okay, and GBA is the design engineer who did the design documents as well. And right up here by Weatherby Lake, as you know, and the project boundaries are basically we're doing south of Northwest Berry Road all the way down to Missouri State Route 9 and west of I-29 and east of Mace. So we're planning on doing a lot of rehabilitation in this project, and the work that's going to be performed here begins with a lot of rehabilitation replacement of piping. And George is going to come up and talk to you about what's all involved. George's history has been a lot on sewer rehabilitation. Guy in the field that has seen a lot of rehabilitation being done.
Yeah, thanks. Again, my name is George Downs. I'm with Burns McDonald. I'm the field operations manager. And basically, if you have any issues during construction, we would like for you to contact me first. And then I will try to get answers to your questions or try to resolve any issues you may have. But when you call me, I'm not in the field every day with the crews. So when you call me, I'm going to answer the phone, take all your information, and I will track down the answer or try to get something resolved, but I will not be able to do it right then and there. So you're just going to have to give me a little bit of time. So when we talk about the construction for this I&I project, we're talking about two main types of construction, trenchless technology, and there are some open cut repairs that need to be done. The trenchless technology is CIPP, which is basically installing a new pipe within the old pipe. We don't dig anything up, but they do access each manhole. We also will do CIPP service line connections. Again, we access that from the manholes. We don't have to dig anything up. Also, there are manhole rehab repairs that are trenchless. We'll spray a spray liner on the manholes to stop leaks. Grout pipe seals, stop leaks that way too. Now, the other part of it, in some areas where the pipe is too damaged for us to put the liners in, we will have to dig it up and repair. So in some areas, there are open cut repairs, which could be point repairs on the main line or service lateral point repairs. There are a few pipes that are getting replaced from manhole to manhole open cut construction. And so you'll see that. Just arrow up. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so during construction, this first bullet is kind of misleading somewhat. For most of the construction on the trenchless construction, the CIPP work is done by in situ form. In situ form's a sub, right? So they'll have basically box trucks that look like moving vans. There's a lot of equipment in it. They do make a lot of noise. They do have to line up on the manholes in a certain way. So sometimes they're blocking part of the road when they're setting up. But it is noisy because they run generators and boilers and things like that. So you will hear noise when they're actually doing that work. The crews that do the service lateral repairs, it's smaller scale, but again, they run generators and equipment to be able to put those service lateral liners in. The open cut construction is a different story. You will see big backhoes, depending upon the size and depth of the pipe that they're working on. But you will see large backhoes, skid loaders, dump trucks, and they will be working in that area, and they will create dust in some places, but we will always try to make sure that we are cleaning that up at the end of each workday so that you're not having to drive through that. Now, keep in mind during construction, there will be spots where the road maybe blocked a lane or something like that. I don't know if I don't think we have any total road closures on this. Do you know of any? That's what I was thinking too. But you will notice there will be times when you have to drive around the construction and everything will be marked that way. Again, most of the work will always be done in the temporary easement or the actual sewer easements or the right of ways. Now, for the open cut work, we may need, the contractor may come to you and ask for an agreement to access a certain way or certain place, but that's on a site-by-site basis, and they haven't really gone through it that deeply to know exactly where those are yet, but you may be contacted for something of that sort. And at certain times, you will get a notice. Keep in mind, all the work we're doing, you will always get a notice ahead of time. For the trenchless work, it's usually 48 hours. There will be certain spots where they will ask you not to use any water because it will not drain through the pipe because it'll be plugged, but it'll only be a short amount of time. Like for most mainline pipe CIPP, it usually takes a maximum of 2.5 hours unless something goes wrong. But for that 2.5 hours, we would ask you not to use that water. And again, you'll have a notice on your door saying when that's going to happen. And actually, when they shut that, when they put the liner in and blow it up, if they know you're home, they'll knock on the door and tell you, hey, please don't use water. Now, when we do open cut sewer work, the notice is a little bit longer, but I'm not exactly sure what your time frame is on that for doing the open cuts to let the property owners know.
I think it's usually 3 or 4 days.
Right. But you'll usually
About
3 or 4 days.
will come to the door. It's something.
Yeah, and if you get a notice and you don't understand what it means, call me and I will try to explain it as best I can.
The door hangers.
So another way you can stay informed. Again, we just talked about the notice, but we also have a web page that you can use the QR code, scan that in, and they have an updated progress report that's updated every 4 to 6 weeks of where the work is, what's going on, what's been done, what's still left to be done, and all those kind of things on that. And if you leave us your email address on the sign-in sheet, we can make sure that you're on the email list to get those updates every time they send a new one out. So is there any quick questions for me on this real quick? So there will be questions at the end, but I'm gonna leave this up to Eric to talk about schedule now. This is Eric.
So I'm Eric McCormick, project manager for Havens Construction. So if you do have any construction, I know Doug said you go through him, but you can also call me anytime. My information will be on there as well if you have some specific questions about your property. So right here, oh, one thing I wanted to add, did mention that we're going to be replacing lines from manhole to manhole, and technically they're scheduled for open cut operations. We will actually handle that via pipe bursting. So we will not dig the entire line up. So basically what we'll do is we'll dig a pit at the start, so basically right outside the manhole, and at the end, right outside the manhole. And then we'll dig up where those service laterals will connect to the pipe, but everything else will be left underground. And basically how that works is we take a new pipe and basically pull it through the old pipe, and it bursts the old pipe as we do it and as the new pipe comes in. So then once that's done, we'll reestablish the connections for the laterals and to the main. So just a little clarification.
Just make sure you tell them those service laterals have to be dug up to make those connections.
That's what I said. We'll dig up the service laterals and we'll dig up the start and end pit, basically your pull drag pits. So, and then once it's pulled through, we'll make those connections and backfill everything. So
How much time do you lose service? If you're pulling through, but you're piping.
Mhm.
So the line's out of service.
yeah, so it's typically we can pull it through the same day that we disconnect, and then we'll reconnect it just as soon as possible. So
So they might be out of service.
at most a day. Yeah, at most a day. Okay, so this is kind of the general area. So construction timeline, we don't have, I think our notice to proceed is probably going to be towards the end of this month. And we typically you'll start seeing mobilization of crews and stuff like that, usually 1 month after. So we're looking kind of towards the end of July to start mobilizing for this project. We'll start out for construction operations. A lot of it's going to be trenchless work. So we'll start out with our pre-cleaning and CCTV. So you're just going to see camera trucks out there that are inspecting the lines. And then once that happens, we will roll into our pipe inseals, which is another trenchless item, which is basically repairing the pipe connections to sound pipe. And then after that, we'll start casting replacements. So that's in backyards, that's in easements and right of ways. We'll come through, pop the old casting off and put a new casting on. So basically manhole lids is what we're going to replace. And then followed shortly after that will probably be our open cut operations, like our point repairs and things like that should happen this summer. So I anticipate that to start happening this summer. As far as the trenchless work for mainline, the CIPP that was mentioned, that'll probably happen towards the fall. And then that'll kind of roll out through next year. And then we typically end the year doing cementitious lining and then lateral repairs. So how the construction operation works, let's take your
your standard line, if it's getting basically everything on it, it's getting, you know, manholes replaced or manholes lined, it's getting CIPP through it, it's getting all the laterals repairs. The order of operations typically will be, we'll CCTV it, then we'll come in once, you know, our recommendations are done. If there's any port repairs that have to be done on that before the CIPP goes in, we will do those port repairs next. Then after that, we will run the liner through, do the CIPP. Then after the, yes, ma'am. Okay. I will do the best I can. Okay, so CIPP is cast in place pipe. So basically we're taking a tube and running it through the main line from manhole to manhole. We're inflating it and curing it, and it becomes a new pipe. Okay, so it's completely trenchless. We don't dig anything up unless there's a problem. But we'll go from that manhole all the way to the other manhole. We'll inflate it. It's a brand new pipe in there. Okay, so let me start. No, it's not. First step is cammering. So we will camera the line. I understand. So just to walk through it, yeah, just to walk through it one more time, we'll camera the main line, and that basically determines what needs to be done on it, because the designers are great to go in and, you know, review it, but we like to look at it before we do any repairs. So we'll make our recommendations of what needs to happen. Then once that's done, if there's any areas of the pipe that are not sound enough for the new liner to go through, we'll have to repair that section of it. So that's called a point repair. So we'll come in and do the point repairs that need to happen. If there's any laterals in it, so the laterals that come off to the houses, if there's any of those that are too damaged that need to be dug, we will do that before we put the liner in as well. Yes, sir. So we go just to the right-of-way line. So we basically repair the connection, and that can be anywhere from 2 feet out to 5 feet out. We basically go all the way to the right-of-way. Probably not. No. Correct. Now, typically, if the lateral is bad past the right of way, it's not uncommon for us to go to sound pipe. So we'll repair all the way at that back to sound pipe, even if it is on. So sound pipe would be pipe that is usable, that's not broken down. Yeah. Okay. And so after we do all the open cut repairs, we will bring that new liner in, that cast in place pipe. Then once that's done, once they do that, we reestablish the service. So we actually have a little machine that goes in and cuts holes where all the services are. So everything can be operational again. And then at that point, we will do lateral lining. So if there's issues in the connection, but it's still sound enough, we can put a liner through. So it could be leaking, but it's not shifted out of place or anything like that, or not collapsed. We'll actually go in and shoot a cast in place liner up the lateral that forms a new T. About 2 or 3 feet. Yes. Yes. And then once that's done, that can be done while we line the inside of the manholes. So if there's any active infiltration inside the manhole, we'll line that manhole cementitiously. Or if it's too bad, we can replace the whole manhole. So that's kind of a order of operations, kind of general overview for what's going to happen. So as far as timeline goes, like I said, we will start CCTV probably in the next month or so. Then we'll follow that up with pipe in seals, which are basically sealing the connection of the pipe to the manhole. And then we will do casting replacements and any point repair work that needs to be done. Okay. And then that's what I anticipate kicking off this summer. This fall, we'll start mainline cast in place pipe. And then kind of towards the next year, we will do all of the the total line replacements or the pipe bursting, and we'll do manhole lining and lateral lining. Yes, ma'am. No, this is repair only. So we're not going to add any new lines to this project. So not for the sewer. So for the wastewater, we're not going to upsize anything on this project. Okay. So if you're talking about storm sewer runoff, that's something completely separate. Okay. So just to give you an geographical area, most of this project is centered around this area right here. And that is where we will start. And then as we get through everything, we'll branch out kind of around as needed. Okay. And our construction schedule is basically 390 days to be substantially complete. So we are anticipating completing this project by July 2025. And then we'll be final complete by October. Yes. So basically kind of right around Belvedere, is that right? Belvedere, kind of just north and south of Belvedere, basically from, this I-29 area over to Congress. Huh? Yes, ma'am.
So think of it as, Belvedere south to,
Is that it? Are we?
So stay up here. So let's get into, it sounds like we want to get into questions. Does that sound accurate? So here, scoot over. The main point before we get into questions is your first point of contact is George Downs. And before you leave tonight, please take a picture of that, grab a fact sheet with his contact information on it. If you can't reach George, then Bogue is your second point of contact. And then Eric is also one of your options. So we'll try to get your questions answered, and we're trying to give you options, but the priority is George Downs. So with that, well, let's take some general questions about the program and the project. And then if you have specific questions about your property, I invite you to come forward to one of the drawings, grab a project team member, and we will talk to you about your specific property. So with that, are there any large questions about this project? Yes, ma'am. It's a water main.
So this won't be simple. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is kind of, I don't know if this applies or not, but we got these door hangers a couple months ago or 3 months ago or whatever. Is this related at all, or is it separate?
We haven't put any door hangers out for this job.
Okay, I know that there's another water project. I just don't know if it is. I didn't know if they were related.
John, did you figure out if Keep Out the Rain came through?
It could be Keep Out the Rain. The private iodine reduction program that I talked about earlier, one of the ways that they encourage people to participate if they don't hear from them either through telephone or through emails is they'll leave a door in. It really is an opportunity for you to help contribute towards reducing the amount of rainwater getting in your system. And it doesn't cost you anything. If let's say, for example, you had a downspout that was connected to your lateral, the city would pay a plumber to actually disconnect it and install an alternative location for the water to go into an dispersion trench or to discharge out on the ground. So if you have a sump pump that's currently plumbed into your service lateral that goes out, and that sump pump is managing your foundation drain, we don't want all that groundwater in the sanitary sewer. Instead, they'll just connect it and they'll just charge it out on the ground and get it away from your home. Those simple things, while it may not seem like a lot per house, when there's a lot of houses, that's a lot of water. And if that water gets in the pipe, that means other flow that we want in the pipe can't get in because the pipe's full. When it can't get in, it overflows out of the manhole. So part of the challenge for us is identifying those inflow sources. Now, we talked about I and I. Inflow is when the water can directly get in, like a downspout. It directly gets into your lateral and instantly shows up in the main. Infiltration is where the water has to soak through the ground before it can get through a crack in the pipe or soak into the ground and get into a manhole that's got a crack in it, right? The overflows that happen that are really the ones that cause an overflow out of the manholes are those that quickly get in. The system gets overwhelmed because the water rushes in so fast and the pipe can't carry it away fast. The only energy that the water has to convey down the pipe is the slope of the pipe itself. If it's on a steep incline, it'll carry a lot of water. If it's pretty flat, the water's got to basically stack up in the manhole to convey it down the line. So our goal is to only have the flow in the pipes that we want. There is a separate storm sewer pipe that is in your area. That's for rainwater. That's where we want it to go. But we're trying to keep it from getting in our sanitary sewer system, which is unfortunately some of the locations where it gets in.
And it, just to add, it also keeps us treating that rainwater as well.
Any other big questions?
We will be doing operations during the winter, yes. There are some of the trenchless stuff and the open cut stuff we can do during the winter.
There are some things that are temperature dependent, though, like the spray lining and.
Correct. Pipe bursting probably be done this winter.
Well, are they gonna do anything about erosion around the manholes? Because when we moved here, the ground, the ditch was level with the manhole cover. And now you can see about 4 feet of the manhole. So the whole thing.
So it depends on whether that's a storm sewer manhole. Because the storm sewer system has pipes and manholes, and the sanitary sewer system has pipes and manholes. And we are very careful to make sure that if we have an exposed sanitary sewer manhole that's in a creek or adjacent to a creek, that can tend to be an inflow source, right? Manhole gets a crack in it, creek comes up, gets in the manhole. So we would definitely be looking to see if it's got exposure to inflow
A
coming up.
couple months ago, they mowed the ditch. And they knocked the manhole cover off. It was laid about 3 feet there. And all it was, they manhole without a cover on it. So I called the city. It took about a week to get that manhole cover put back on. I mean, that's, liability. Some kid could fall
in it. Sure. That's. And when Eric was talking about changing the castings, really it's the top portion of the manhole where we can get water getting in.
Right.
And so we'll get.
It's not uncommon for us to lower the maintenance down. If we need to.
Right, but
But if you do have a situation where you see something out there, let George know, and we'll look to see if it's in the documents, and if it's not, we'll address it. We'll fix it, whether it's in there or not.
yeah, it's a mess because, Kansas City snowplow went in the ditch one winter and you could only see a third of the truck. That's how deep
The ditches.
the road is.
So stormwater is a separate challenge the city has, right? Because you've got a lot of open channels that convey stormwater, in addition to underground pipes. And the funding for stormwater capital improvements only comes through the city's PIAC process, if you're familiar with that. That's the Public Advisory Improvement Committee. The city council members basically get 1% of the sales tax to apply towards any sort of infrastructure improvement in their district or citywide. And the reality is the stormwater fee that you pay on your water bill only goes towards maintenance of existing assets, no improvements to those assets. There's just not enough money there. So One of the things that we're doing right now as part of the consent decree is evaluating the prioritization of infrastructure improvements in the wastewater system, stormwater system, and the drinking water systems. Because the city is reacting to regulations that are coming from the federal government. The overflow control program is driven off of compliance with the Clean Water Act. Improvements in the drinking water are driven off of the Safe Drinking Water Act. And stormwater improvements are driven off of your permits that the city has for separate storm sewer systems that the state regulates. So everything is regulatory driven. And the regulators are asking for so much at once. The city's got to say, wait a minute, we only have a certain amount of money here. Let's prioritize what we're going to do and agree on the schedules by which we're going to do it. Because we have to maintain affordability for the citizens that pay for these things. So we're starting to embark on that process now as part of Smart Sewer. I'm sure you've seen your wastewater bills, your overall water bills come up. A lot of it's due to the wastewater investment that's been made since 2010. And there's new regulations coming on the drinking water side that we're going to have to contend with as well. So,
Sir.
It's gonna affect, like, there's a part like right off of Belvedere, there's a street called Avalon. And like it extends all the way down the street along Prairie. There's a part when you're turning off of Belvedere right at that gas station there. Where when you come off of Belvedere, you turn right onto Avalon. There's like a part of the street where there's just a giant hole. And it's just always filled with water. Is this project gonna address some of those issues where you have wastewater flying just?
yeah, let's look at the drawings and see if it's picked up. And if it's not, let's identify where it is. And then we can follow up on it to find out what that really is. And then we'll try to get that addressed.
Yeah, because that's like, we've lived here since 2014 and that little corner there, turning onto the bigger Avalon Street that goes along Prairie View. That's always been a problem, like literally every summer.
Yeah, let's look at the drawings and see what we have in that area.
Okay. Well, come on up and take a look at the drawings and we'll answer any questions you all have. Thanks for coming.
Exactly.